Good morning, everyone.
Good morning and welcome. It's Wednesday and
Wednesday? Oh yeah, on my card it's Wednesday.
our morning show has just started. And I would say, without any further ado, we just dive right into it because we have a very special guest with us in the studio as well. Good morning, the president of the Lyfana University
Hi, good
Lüneburg.
morning.
Hi, good morning.
Mr. Spoun.
It's so great to have you here.
Yeah. Thanks for coming.
It's my pleasure to be here.
Yeah,
You know, it's
yeah.
a wonderful opening every morning that you are doing.
Thank you very much.
Perfect start in the
So,
day.
Cornelius,
I have a question. What do you actually do? What is the job of a president of the university?
You know, it's quite interesting because it's a broad range of activities. You know, starting from here, but also, you know, some very formal aspects. But mostly I care about people and, you know, the future development. So it's so important that we focus on activities that assure quality not only today, but also in the future.
thank you, Mr. Spoun. And to get more of your knowledge of on the Lyfana, we have prepared a little game. Can we maybe have the game here? Okay, so there are 6 categories, and we would ask you to choose one of them, and then we have a question for you.
So
That's
let's
right.
just start with future cities.
Future cities. I have a good question for that. Please, Mr. Spoun, name 2 aspects when talking about future cities.
You know, the most interesting is cities are so vibrant. That's the reason why we all love to live in cities and to explore them. And, you know, so I think that's the most important, that we can explore, you know, what makes an interesting city. And the second one would be your personal vision. You know, what an interesting city would be tomorrow or in the future, where you want to live.
Okay, that's great because that's the theme of our project group work today as well. Very good. Next category, please.
You know, students.
Okay, students. What are 3 characteristics of a good student? No, I should have known that before. Please.
You know, I think to be curious, so really interested in a lot of things, to explore the world. Second, I think, you know, a certain kind of engagement for civil society, so that it's not only about a student herself or himself, but about, you know, our society. You know, and I would say third, to have a certain vision, you know, to strive for an idea that one really wants to realize.
So
Perfect.
all
Again.
about vision.
Yeah,
Vision,
fits
vision, vision.
perfectly
Okay,
today
wow.
as well
Yeah.
to our Brainy breakfast later, I
Yeah.
think. Maybe we have time for 2 more categories, Mr. Spoun.
So, you know,
Choose.
after students, we are at Lyfana.
Yeah, that's actually the word itself. What does Lyfana actually mean?
You know, Lyfana stands for an interesting university, for an attractive place where you can really get in and get invested. But originally, this was a name Ptolemaios designed on a map 1,800 years ago, where he has drawn, you know, a picture of what was then known, and the area south of the Elbe River was called Lyfana. And this was found out in 2006 at a congress in Basel, because this was completely, this disappeared. So it's very interesting. It's something that has stood for the region and today stands for innovation and university, academic world, and so on.
Okay, thank you.
Exciting.
And last category.
You know, we are all first semester, and I love it to be always, you know, every year, once again, a freshman.
Yeah.
That's right, when you're in the opening week team as well. Do you have a piece of advice for our first semester students?
You know, just participate. You know, just let it be, let it flow, and discover what is happening this week, what will happen during the Lyfana semester, and then develop your own curriculum.
That's very cool because participation is also important when you watch our keynote with Dirk Messner in the afternoon, right?
It's so good that you're here today.
Participate,
It's the right day for you.
You're giving all the right keywords for our show. Thank you very much,
Thank
Mr.
you.
Spoun, for
It was great being here. So
Yeah.
have a good day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank
a
you
good
very
morning.
much.
Bye-bye.
Bye. And so now we are having our prof time with Daniel Lange hosting it. And Daniel Lange has 2 really cool persons calling from South Africa. That is Injaira Kulundu Bolos and Heila Lotz-Sisitka. And they are going to talk about transgression for the future cities. Please.
Good morning, dear students. It's great to be in a prof time. So this is prof time. Well, when we look at cities, and I think this became very clear when you watched the keynote of Ragnar Yogeshwar, but also in yesterday's keynote, it's very important that we don't only focus on our perspective, on a Lüneburg perspective, on a German perspective, or more general, on a Westerner perspective. But this is quite risky that we think about cities only from this perspective. On the other hand side, you have also seen in this different keynotes, and probably also already in your group work, that we are facing very complex challenges. It's not easy to find solutions. It's kind of not only technical solutions, but we also need social changes. And therefore, given this complexity, it's extremely important that we also rethink how we learn in educational settings, as you are now entering kind of your next learning experience as students, but also as how we learn as societies to really cope with this tremendous challenges. So we have kind of on the one hand side the need, if we look at cities, to consider intercultural aspects, to also go beyond kind of our Westerner perspective and include different perspectives around the world. And we need to rethink learning. And I'm extremely happy that I have kind of two colleagues from South Africa, from Rhodes University, that at least inspired my work and my thinking about cities and about transformations a lot. So please welcome, on the one hand side, Dr. Njairu Kulundu-Bolus, and on the other hand side, Professor Heila Lotz-Sisitka. So great to have you here. Wonderful. Good morning.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning.
How are you doing?
And you? Yeah, good, thank you.
Very good, thank you.
Okay, that's great. So I want to start, before we kind of dive into this question of cities as places for transgressive learning, kind of ask you how the situation currently is in South Africa, because I think it's good for our students to get a bit of context how life is currently, given COVID, how this is particularly in South Africa and maybe particularly also for students, for your students.
Yeah, so I'll start and then Njairu can just add. I think, we've had, like everybody else across the world, quite a very disruptive experience with the COVID-19. And we've been through a process of lockdowns from level 5, and we're now in what they call level 1 lockdown. And in each of those phases, we've been able to, bring more of our students back onto campus. Mm-hmm. But what was quite a big shock was everybody was just almost like immediately had to, depart and leave the campus and go home. And then were pushed to try to learn online, mm-hmm. which was not always that easy for everybody because of the accessibility of the technology services in many areas. So it's mm-hmm. been quite a difficult period to deal with the inequalities that have just pushed themselves to the surface mm-hmm. in our country, and of course have affected our students, but more so actually I think the school children, because the students in some ways were more agile when it mm-hmm. comes to technology, but school children definitely have been very much affected. And there are, of course, many other dimensions to this period that mm-hmm. I think we're all still trying to make sense of. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And maybe Njairu wants to comment a bit from, working with young people in the cities. And
yes,
yeah,
I think what the pandemic has done is really brought us really close to questions of relevance again, mm-hmm. in terms of the work that the learning that's happening, the work that we're doing together. I think many of you might know, in 2015, 2016, there was a big upsurge around the students, particularly university students, asking for an education of relevance, a decolonized curriculum, decolonized learning. And it's been very interesting to watch what the corona crisis, how real it's kind of shaken everybody the existing equalities, as Heila has said, and really put us in a space where we have to feel like we're responding in real ways. So I think it's really heightened the need for an education of relevance and ways of connecting with each other around what's actually happening.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
This leads me to my next question, and this is kind of you're working on a concept or on an approach that's called transgressive learning, and you also kind of put our dialogue under this label of cities as places of transgressive learning. Maybe you can briefly explore what transgressive learning means, and why are cities, or why do you envision cities as places of transgressive learning?
Should I start again? It's okay. I'll start again. I think what we've been trying to do, Daniel, is to really push the boundaries of transformative learning, because transformative learning actually became a bit of a sort of stuck concept, and it lost meaning. So what we were trying to do was to give new life to the notions of transformation, sort of real change that matters, that's really quite sort of deeply grounded in the kinds of transformations that our societies really need. So we used the term transgressive to trouble transformative, and also to develop a new concept of learning that is not just reliant on acquisition or participation, but that's actually generative in its dynamic, if I can call it that. And then also to really challenge those things in our societies that become normalized and that are unsustainable and that are unjust. So, for example, we've come from a history where, for example, racism in many cases becomes normalized and it becomes unquestioned. So it need to trouble those things. Similarly, the types of energy systems that we rely on have become normalized, and we need to trouble those and transgress them. And all sorts of things, the agricultural practices, the monoculture agricultural practices have become normalized. And so there's a need to trouble them and transgress them. So we've actually found the concept of transgression to be very productive to, generate a new kind of activism, new kind of experimentation, experimenting with new cultures, new practices. And again, I think Injaru can share from her work where she was looking at the issue of rising cultures, and how one transgresses into rising cultures with the young people she was working with.
I think that's very interesting for our students also, I think it's a great concept, but maybe Injaru, you can really give us a concrete example what this means and how this could look like.
Just to add a little bit to what Taylor was saying is that, I think in this context, it was really important to signal a way to access some of the wasted knowledge. D'Souza Santos puts it as the wasted knowledge that young people have in an environment where the norm just keeps clicking on, and there's so much skepticism, frustration that masks a lot of knowledge. And so I think the idea of transgressive learning was really about enlivening the wealth of knowledge that young people on the continent have, and bringing it out in ways that are regenerative, actually having a way of learning together that honors that makes different futures possible. So concrete examples that, the beautiful thing about transgressive learning is that I've worked with many young people for many years, and for the doctorate I worked with 21. And it's really interesting to see how for each person, how their internal compass and intuition leads them in quite different ways. But in as much as it might be seen as an individual leading, it has a very strong historical trajectory that we're coming out of, and we're saying, but actually things need to be in a completely different way. So to give an example, in South Africa, there's a lot of identity-based work that comes to the fore quite quickly. This includes issues around race, gender, class, and the young people are asking a lot of questions about what it means to navigate these issues and to meet each other in authentic ways. There's been a lot of challenge around where the state is particularly, and the kind of the trajectory that it's setting out, and where decolonial futures fit in that. And there's been a lot of work amongst young people to try and bring up an alternative vision, perhaps built on the work of those who have gone before us. If you look at the liberation movements, what happened to the space of possibility for alternative, sustainable futures, and how do we start to pivot towards that in our conversations and our ways of being?
And are you then concretely developing visions in your concrete work? Are you then developing visions with students, or is it how do you get in contact, or what is then happening if in your work,
right,
when you're working together with, I think it's mainly school students, correct?
I'm actually working more with young adults.
Okay, young adults. Okay.
Yeah, young adults from 21 to 35.
Okay.
And we just create gathering holes, space. We like to call them watering holes or breathing spaces where we can really calm down. Calm down sounds patronizing, wrong way to put it. We can really settle be more present to what's moving for us, and use arts-based processes to tap into what matters, the matters of concern, and to put that into dialogue with each other, and to share that boldly with the world too.
Wow.
So it's really been about finding spaces of gathering, talking to each other, generating work from that, doing a lot of self-reflective work individually, but also I think in this particular stage of the postdoc, thinking about how we can share that back into the world, and create more spaces of gathering. So it's a bit of an informal learning kind of gathering space.
That's wonderful. And maybe you could now I think now we got a sense of what transgressive learning means. Why do you think cities are particularly good places for transgressive learning?
Yeah,
I can start a little bit on this one.
So you go first. Maybe share a bit also of the COVID work you've been doing, Jairu.
All right. Yes. My brain is going two ways at the same time. But when I was looking at the question on the cities, what really struck me, and even in your introduction, when you're talking about cities as places of transgressive learning, I was thinking again about history and the history of cities, and how the migration towards the city always came with a vision of a different life, a better life. And it's, we're at a place in history right now where the sense of just the numbers population-wise, and some of the living spaces and informal settlements that have been in very precarious states, even way before COVID-19, So cities are a very interesting place to be looking at what transgressive learning is happening, because there's this feeling like this is where life should be happening, but there's also an incredible density and an incredible a very strong experience of what cannot continue. And so the transgressive learning is it's a space where, in this highly densified space, different ways of being can start to sprout out of a very intense necessity.
I think that if I can just add to that, I think there's also like a possibility for a dynamism that can really give, meeting space for regenerative cultures, and also for, different groups to come together and actually see each other, face each other, and begin to negotiate what that future needs to look like. So I think that the possibility for regenerating cultures is quite high in cities, because there's this kind of movement dynamic. It's a very, very mobile space, cities, and especially, as Injairu says, when there's so much the densities and the need for housing, sanitation, water, waste services. There's a big kind of demand for food systems that work, and so on. So the kind of like in-your-faceness of the needs and the challenges really produce a dynamism that can allow for this kind of boundary crossing type of learning and the ways of sharing knowledge in different ways and so on. They're also quite vibrant, you know, these cultures of vibrant cultures that one can really build on in cities, I think. Yeah.
I just got a sign that I already lost time. So sorry, but this is always if I you know, it's so inspirational to talking to you that you know, I could talk for hours. But maybe you could give in the last sentence, the two of you, our students, an idea what transgressive learning could mean for them. You know, as fresh women and men starting now in a new phase of their academic career and learning journey. What would you say? What would you give to the students and say, well, go for that, and this is change the world, and this is the way how you could do it?
I would say have a good think about the history that's brought you to the university. Think about the people who've come before you and what learning meant for them. Think about what you're holding particularly in this moment. And I think in terms of transgressive learning, for a young student, what would it mean to fully integrate yourself into your inquiry? And by that I mean there's different cultures of learning that have persisted over time that sometimes stress one aspect of yourself as welcome and not all. And my question would be, what parts of you are possibly left in exile, and how can you bring them and their questions to the fore in the work that you do, as well as doing something that you feel is very easily translates to the world that you walk in every single day. Yeah.
Thank you. Heila, one thought that you want to share with our students.
Yes, I think that for me, one of the most important things is to, you know, have a sort of like, what would you call it, an experimental eye that is always trying to look at how you can expand your horizon, because the problem that we have with our cultures is that they lock us in. And to unlock yourself from the constraints of an unsustainable culture is a very big challenge, because we get trapped in our own culture. So to have the experimental eye, to expand your horizon, to challenge taken for granted norms, always look at something and say, you know, why are we taking this for granted, and what sits behind it? And can we unearth it? And can we open it up? Can we cross boundaries? Can we cross borders? Can we see the other and not just ourselves? And this is so important. And I mean, see in the real term, you know, really see them, not just look at them. So those are some of the things I think that we've noticed are the characteristics actually of transgressive learning, is this sort of very openness to experimentation, challenges, challenging taken for granted norms is really crucial, I think. And to be open to regenerate our cultures and produce totally different cultures, ones that are more sustainable, more socially just, more connected, more open-minded. Yeah. So I think from my side, that's what I would say.
So Njairu and Heila, thank you so much. And to the students, this is exactly why I'm an academic, to lose time and be inspired by such wonderful, wonderful people. Thank you so much, and have a great day in South Africa, and hope to see you soon again. Thank you.
Thank you, Daniel.
Thank you.
And I hand over to Farina.
Yeah. Thank you, Daniel.
Okay.
Thanks very much. So I think that was very important, having those last sentences on transgressive learning there, because that really fits what you are doing today, as well as the two guests just said. We have to challenge our culture right now and ask what can be changed. And for that, I have Johanna Hopp with me now. Johanna, hi, good seeing you.
Morning.
Hi. So today is all about vision. We actually, without scripting, had that a lot now in our morning show until here. But now I'm asking you as an expert for our students, what is a vision?
Yeah, actually, as you already said, this was already quite fruitful, what you heard before. But yeah, let's dive a bit more into what exactly a vision is. So visions describe a way in which I can relate to the future. That's very broad. But they differ from other ways I can relate to the future. For instance, if we take scenarios, which you might know from the IPCC, the International Panel on Climate Change, where they model the future. That's a kind of a way of relating to the future where a future is possible, or it's like, it describes a possible future. A forecast, for instance, which you know from a weather forecast, describes a probable future. But a vision describes a decisively desirable future. So it's something that is inspiring, that people want to live up to, and that allows, I would say, a desirable setting with a good life for all.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. And so, what do we need visions for today? Like, why are we doing this whole visioning thing?
Yeah, actually, the previous speaker just said it in a very good way. She said that we need an experimental eye to escape the lock-in of unsustainable lifestyles, of unsustainable futures. And I would say to escape this lock-in, we need visions for. We need to kind of have our imaginative creativity to imagine, to envision a future that's different from how it is now. Because, yeah, I mean, if we look into the newspaper or just engage with the world, we see there's a climate crisis going on, there's biodiversity loss, a crisis of forced migration and displacement, crisis of democracy with right-wing populism parties reaching or gaining more political influence. And these challenges, they can be quite overwhelming, I would say. And to face these challenges with creativity and with inspiration from how a future could be different, that's what we need visions for.
Okay, so and now very concretely for today's project group work, because we have our key term sheet or holy sheet right here with the visioning on it. What's the point about visioning for today's project group work?
Yeah, so today the plan for you is to develop your own visions for future cities based on the challenges you identified yesterday. And for this, your tutors will provide you different methods of how you can get into this visionary mode. And also there are some other tips and tricks maybe you could use, which you find in the key term sheets, but which I'm gonna tell you now as well. So for instance, there are certain questions which you can ask yourself as a group to get into this visionary mode. One question would for instance, be that you set a date for the imagined future. For instance, how is housing going to be in 2050? And then you imagine how would the future be in a desirable way? So how would you really like it to be in 2050? And how could that be realized for the topic of housing? Important for that is that it's not a fantasy world. So it's something that could be realized without a magic word. But you can just let your ideas flow. And another question you can ask yourself as a group, if you want to get a bit more like, if you want to carve out the details of your vision, is what other side stages does your vision have? What happens if you put it into another time, if you put your vision to another place? What new ideas come up? Or what would happen if money wasn't important? If there was no money at all, or you didn't need money at all to realize your vision, what would happen then? What other ideas would come up? So I would say it's basically about playing with your creativity today a bit. And your tutors are going to support you with this. And hopefully the second page of these key term sheets can also give you some more ideas on how to do that.
Okay. Thank you very much, Johanna. And what is fitting to that also is that you are meeting the impulse speakers right after this morning show. There are some practitioners. You're meeting them via Zoom, and you can talk to them and ask them, how did they come to their vision? Why are they doing their projects? But now, as always, when I've done with Johanna, Cornelius has something going on for us all.
Yes, exactly. Thank you, Johanna. Farina, I have to thank you in a way, because Farina, you made our studio very comfortable. You brought plants and all that.
Yeah.
And I'm a man of taste. So the first,
As you can see from your trousers today.
as you can see from my pants today, I can stand up again and show them. I'm a man of taste, so my first sense is always tasting stuff. So when I saw this wonderful plant, I thought it's rosemary, and I took a leaf and I tasted it, and I was like, okay, that's odd. Maybe it's a really different breed of rosemary, or it's an old rosemary. And then Farina came yesterday to my desk and said, oh my God, look how beautiful this lavender is. So it seems like I've been snacking lavender for the whole week already.
Feeling sick?
No, I'm fine.
Yeah,
actually.
lavender is very healthy as well. And what is very wonderful is that, can you show that maybe? Can you zoom in there? Because we're doing visions today, how fitting is that again? There is a blossom on this lavender since this morning. And so I wish and I imagine that your visions are gonna be like this small lavender blossom.
Wow. That's a wonderful moral of the
I
story.
know.
I have a totally different moral of the
Okay.
story. Mine is that I just like eating, just like every person
Okay.
that's not a psychopath.
Don't eat that blossom though.
I won't eat that
Okay,
blossom.
good.
I have my chocolate here. And yesterday, I used my break and change to try out the different food trucks that we have on campus, especially for your first days on campus. So if you want to know where you can spend the perfect lunch today, I would say watch this video. So, Mittagspause auf dem Campus und wir haben ja mehrere Foodtrucks für euch vorbereitet. Ich werde jetzt eine qualitativ hochwertige Studie durchführen und auf einer Skala von besonders lecker bis unglaublich schmackhaft unsere Foodtrucks bewerten. Kommt, was ist Los Tacos Locos?
Tacos Locos surgió de Simon Siebert, es un estudiante de acá, de Lyfana, y bueno, estamos haciendo unos ricos burritos veganos, vegetarianos y también con chili con carne, y esa es nuestra especialidad, y usamos algunas cosas, algunos elementos bio, algunas cosas también regionales de Lüneburg.
Ich würde ein Burrito nehmen mit Tofu. Geht
Ja.
das? Jonathan, möchtest du auch was? Zweimal Burrito mit Tofu.
Ja, gerne. Taco.
Dankeschön.
Schön.
Kann man euch auf Instagram finden, auf Facebook?
Ja klar, está todo hier.
Ah, perfekt, super.
Ja klar.
Also es riecht bereits unglaublich gut. Ich würde sagen, wir machen jetzt bereits den Test. Unglaublich schmackhaft. Die Tacospuren sind noch zu sehen, aber ich würde sagen, wir holen uns jetzt mal direkt einen Kaffee bei Gondel. Hallo.
Moin.
Was habt ihr denn für eine Röstung?
Wir haben momentan einen Kolumbianer als Espresso. Wir haben aber noch als Kaffee haben wir einen Äthiopier. Der ist ein bisschen fruchtiger. Mit dem Espresso, der wechselt alle 2-3 Monate, weil wir immer neuen frischen Rohkaffee kaufen und die halt auch selbst rösten. Und das passen wir dann immer so ein bisschen den Jahreszeiten an. Ob wir etwas Stärkeres brauchen, ein bisschen wetterabhängig tatsächlich. Genau.
Ich würde gerne einen Flat White nehmen.
Gerne.
Und Jonathan, für dich? Ein Kakao. Kolumbianische Röstung. Schmeckt gut. Kann man nicht sagen. Schmeckt bombastisch. Super leckerer Kaffee. Perfekt für den Start in den Tag oder nach einer Project Group Session. Hier ab 9:30 Uhr morgens für euch dabei, Karacho-Kaffee. Und unser letzter Foodtruck, Phoenix Vegan, hat Falafel und orientalische Spezialitäten. Ihr seht, der Ansturm ist groß, aber ich habe da mal was vorbereitet. Und wir probieren es einfach mal. Es lohnt sich anzustellen. Jonathan, das ist ja alleine auf. Zurück ins Studio.
So, hello in the studio, Manja and Maria. Thanks that you're coming in the morning to us. And so, my first question always to bands is, how did you meet? How did you find each other?
We were having voice lessons with the same voice teacher here at university. And he kept telling me about this other student he has, and he was like, "You would be the perfect match, like with your voices and your style of music, and it would be perfect. Can I give her your phone number?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure, that sounds great." Yeah, he told her the same apparently, but we never heard from each other, so he must have maybe he forgot. And then we met by coincidence at an open stage at the Café Finke here in Lüneburg. And after we both played, we were like, I think I'm supposed to know you. I heard a lot about you.
That's such a good story.
And then we started making music. And he was
cool.
right, though. It was a good
Okay,
match.
yeah, because
Quite well.
I've heard something for you when you were practicing here, so no, he was right. But then, so for our first semester students, you can take voice lessons in university. Can you explain that shortly?
And we had that as part of our study. Like we are both studying music for a teacher, like to become a teacher, and it was just it's part of our like bachelor program. So I think it's not for everybody, but for the music students.
Okay, for the music students. Okay, cool. So we're listening to you now, but have you recorded something?
We're actually in the middle of recording the first EP, which will be available at the beginning of next year.
Cool.
But the very first single will be released at the end of this month.
Wow.
Ooh, so
And
how can we be updated from YouTube?
We're available on all social media platforms like Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter.
And always with just Manja and Maria?
Yeah.
Okay.
Great,
Manja
so
und Maria. It's like
I will
German
tune
und
in later today, and also, of course, in the end of the month. Super exciting.
Yeah.
And before you start, I would say Farina gives us a brief
that's
overview
always
of what is happening today.
I always forgot that part because I just want to listen to that music, man. What is coming up today? You are going to draft your critical comments in this morning and then write them tomorrow. And then you're starting to think on the ideas of change that will become your visions in the afternoon. And there's going to be a keynote, very concrete, on how does the future have to be transformative to be more sustainable, with Dirk Messner from the Umweltbundesamt. He's the president of the Umweltbundesamt. And as yesterday, as the day before, you can participate, ask questions, discuss critically with Dirk Messner. So please go in that Zoom room and start talking with our guest here. And then we will have a manual and a video for you in which we explain how to write the comment and how to make a video by our very expert, Jonathan and Leo. And in the evening, there's going to be evening program from the AStA, the Allgemeine Studierenden,
Ja, schon. Allgemeiner Studierendenausschuss, ja.
Allgemeiner Studierendenausschuss, kann man so sagen. One can say like that. And they are going to do a show called Wissen macht AStA for you at 7 p.m. here from the studio.
Exactly. So a wonderful day has just started and is lying ahead of you. I would say thanks for watching.
And see you on campus.
Did you go, and how could I used to know? Now I'm sitting wondering how you feel. Do you see it all clear? Do you see it all clear? Do you see it all clear? 'Cause we're just strangers in the daylight. Won't you help me to get this right? Strangers, you should know I'm on your side. Won't you help me to get this right? Help me, let's get this right. Where we started and where we'll end, same familiar place. What changed is me pretending to still know where you stand. Well, I don't. You seem to differ now and then. I don't. I don't. 'Cause we're just strangers in the daylight. Won't you help me to get this right? Strangers, you should know I'm on your side. Won't you help me to get this right? get this right, strangers. You should know I'm on your side. Won't you help me to get this right? Help me, let's get this right.
I got lost in my own dreams again. And when I sense reality, I can feel my sticky hands. I cannot abandon them as I'm scared to touch the ground. I can't stand you crushing them, so I'll make sure you're not around anymore. 'Cause now's the time to follow sounds. My mind is racing, spinning wild tonight. Shadows are being pushed aside. Toss the clocks and kick those rocks. It's time to breathe, let go of these restraints. What I feel and what I do collide sometimes. Too paralyzed to reach for stars, 'cause they seem way too high. You say you know the best of me and that it makes you proud. Just wait until we meet again, when I've turned myself inside out. 'Cause now's the time to follow sounds. My mind is racing, spinning wild tonight. Shadows are being pushed aside. Toss the clocks and kick those rocks. It's time to breathe, let go of these restraints. What if you think I'm a mess? Don't tell me you think I'm a masterpiece. What if you think I'm a mess? Don't tell me you think I'm a masterpiece. Now's the time to follow sounds. My mind is racing, spinning wild tonight. Shadows are being pushed aside. Toss the clocks and kick those rocks. It's time to breathe, let go of these restraints. Now's the time to follow sounds. My mind is racing, spinning wild tonight. Shadows are being pushed aside.